Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our new World of Paws podcast.
Today we're discussing the reboot of DC Comics as a whole, which includes the comic books, animated series, live action series, and theatrical films.
DC Comics has always had some of the best content of superhero fans of every age for decades, but recently they've been making odd decisions in all of their media, and they've been shifting more and more towards a villainy, violent side, with movies based on villains or making their heroes more villainous. Why is that?
Yes, and this started around maybe the later 2010s, I could say about 16 or 17, when they did not only just the New 52, and they did the Rebirth
One of
as
the worst
well.
decisions ever. Oh my gosh.
And the DC Universe Rebirth, which was like a reboot of a reboot. And we didn't read the comics until like a little later. And we heard about,
we did get some of those New 52s when they were out, and we were not pleased with what we read.
Yeah. And we know that, for the ones who are really hardcore DC fans, they're going to like pretty much a lot of stuff they read and might be okay with the decision. If you're okay with this decision of the comics getting more violent or graphic or in the terms of action, then that's okay. We have no problem with that. But for the ones who have been reading comics for a while or grew up watching DC comic shows and stuff and love the Truth, Justice, American Way style of writing they've had for years.
Or like me, have been reading them for decades.
Right.
And also for those who have children that they were introducing to DC.
Right.
To carry on the tradition.
Right. And now the comics have really shifted in their quality. For a story, we would see that for, like, when we see the animated series, they're all based off of actual comics and arcs that will go on, and then Bruce Timm decided to turn them into episode ideas for various series. But for the new ones, there are several issues or even volumes, like manga, dedicated to one story in multiple parts, and you have to keep going and reading each volume to keep the story going, know what's going on. But when we start reading it, before you can get into the story, most of the pages are filled with either A, advertisements, or B, lots and lots of violence. Now, for some, that might be considered action, but it seems like there's just way too much going on every page for you to get into whatever story's going on.
First, the advertising. Rascal has some Static Shock comic books she pulled out, wanted to read for her birthday. Great, let's take a look at them. They've been in the plastic for years, we've never touched them. Cleaned her hands, pulled them out, and one comic book had 14 ads. There were fewer pages dedicated to the story than there were to the advertisement.
Right.
And every book that we read was filled with ads. Now, manga does it right. They wait till the end of the book, and then they advertise the other series they would like you to buy or read or whatever. But they wait till the end of everything being told, all the stories being done. There's no ads to interrupt the groove, like Cusco says. It's not throwing off your groove and reading the story. I mean, every time you see an ad, bam, it just stops the momentum. Every time you see an ad, you're like, why am I looking at this? Why is there a 2-page ad right before the apex of this story where you're trying to get me to buy this? Tell me about it later. I don't want to hear about it during this story. And I sure don't want to see it every other page of a comic book. So how I feel is, the comic book is $3, you got 14 ads, I paid for advertising. I didn't pay for a comic book. I paid for $2 worth of ads and $1 worth of comic book.
Right. And as you say, it's okay if it's at the end of the book, then at least I finished the whole story, and then I can see what else I want to get at the same time with it. And heck, even for manga, the first page you read, if you read it the wrong way, hey, go back and read it this way so you don't get confused immediately. Here is, for some reason, there are more ads in the story. That's why you have to buy multiple issues to finish a story, and then the issues are very paper thin.
Yes.
I don't even know how you buy this off the shelves. And then you read it. It's like you can read it in 5 minutes. Maybe that's why they don't want you reading it before you buy it, so you don't know what's in there before you actually purchase it. And then you're like, I paid $3 for this.
That's a good point. Didn't think about that until you just pointed out. When you go for comic book sales, they're all in sleeves, and you're told is to maintain the integrity of the book. Bull. It isn't. because the manga, everywhere you go, is loose and open, and you can see what's in the darn book, and you see the ads are at the end of the book. So it's not to, maintain the integrity, it's to maintain sales, so you don't know that over half of the book is ads, rather being the animated story, not animated story, but the comic book story, you're just itching and raring to read.
Right.
And that's just a slap in the face to comic book buyers everywhere. It truly, truly is. We want more story. We want more plot. We want more pages devoted to character development, as it used to be a long time ago, long before most of us were reading comic books.
Exactly.
Back when they first came out.
Mm-hmm.
They got story, and I'm sure there were little ads and things that were placed, but it wasn't the entire half of the magazine or half of the comic book is advertisements.
Exactly. And like you said, it really pulls you out of whatever story you're trying to read, whether in order or not, because next thing you know, advertising for Comic-Con, advertising for another comic book, advertising for a video game. It's like, I'm supposed to be reading about this hero. Why am I looking at your other products when I'm supposed to be reading the story?
Now, as you said, Comic-Con we can forgive.
Mm-hmm.
But all the other stuff, no, it should be at the end, or it shouldn't be there at all. If you want to advertise to us that much, then give us the story and put those 14 pages at the end of the book.
Right.
Make the comic book bigger. Now on to the violence. There used to be series that you knew were violent, such as Red Hood, maybe the Joker, his dedicated comic books. There are particular heroes where you know the stories are more about action and violence than others.
Right.
And you accepted that because you're okay, well, that's his characters, that's his
That's part of the
modus
theme,
operandi,
yeah.
that's what he does. He's not Batman. We understand it. But now it's gotten to a point over the last few years that every book you pick up in the DC series is about graphic violence and nothing but murdering. And there's very little, if any, story. Mm-hmm. Case in point, we finished reading finally the entire various series for Batman Beyond, which we had been waiting and couldn't just wait to get. We ended up getting from the library. Thank you, United States of America Public Library System. But we were expecting it to be more like the animated series. Mm-hmm. But when we started reading it, it wasn't anything like the animated series. It barely had any resemblance to Batman Beyond. And it was just full of violence and murder.
Yeah.
In every single frame, every single page, every single arc,
right?
Every single story.
It was
every
everything.
single character.
And we didn't get like, okay, we know there was some violence in Batman Beyond if you watch the animated
Mm-hmm.
series. So, okay, there's going to be a little of that. But
Right.
even the animated series didn't go as far as the comics. They
Right.
had their Batman level of violence and then kind of upped it because it's in the future. So it's okay. But here in Batman Beyond, even more in the future, they got this really complicated story that Tim Drake is Batman because Brother Eye took over the world and killed all the heroes, and only Gotham is the only city left in existence. And then we gotta go back in time to get Tim Drake, and now Tim Drake is missing. And then you have to get Terry back from the past because he messed up the timeline. And it's like, what is this?
And now every timeline is filled with jokers. Jokerz, in case you're confused.
Right.
Now, we don't have a problem, I know I don't, if the violence forwards the story.
Right.
And it's necessary for the arc. You
Right.
expect it. But what's in Batman Beyond in every single series we read,
Mm-hmm.
in every single volume, was not furthering the story.
No.
It was just gratuitous, unnecessary, did not help the story, actually made you wonder, at least for me, why the hell am I sitting here reading this?
Right.
And I only finished it because I started it. But I can tell you this, if another Batman Beyond series comes out, and it's anything like the ones I've read, I unfortunately won't be reading it. And Batman Beyond is one of my favorite versions of Batman ever. And it's sad that it's come to this in terms of the writing and the drawing, the artwork. I mean, I don't want to see blood in every single panel that I'm reading.
Right.
And that's what basically happens now. And I'm sure there are others that are following suit.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we were mentioning, we've started with comics. Now we can talk about animated series. Right. How I guess I want to say movie more than animated series. How some of the DC animated movies went very, very dark, versus how they would be full of action, have some humor, have a great story, have a plot, have a mystery that you had to figure out. Had Batman, the world's greatest detective, who didn't believe in killing people. Now that over the last 4 years, that has split.
Yeah.
And switch.
Yes, because when around the time we watched the movies, or when they were made, when we saw them years later, around the time when DC had Justice League series and Batman Beyond, Superman series, all the series were targeted supposedly for kids, but you knew adults were going to watch it because they have more heavy themes in there anyway. But they altered them so that way kids could watch it, but you knew the themes they were suggesting, and that's as far as they would go in terms of TV. So everyone could still watch it, and you could still enjoy it.
Now, I want to say, before you go on, that every single Batman animated series we've seen to date has been fantastic, and as you say, it can be watched by almost any age. We have no qualms or comments about any of those series, especially Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, the Batman, and we could keep going.
Right.
They were fantastic.
Right. And then they said the movies that went with them, they were either movies based off the series, or they were tackling different books, different origins, different series, and there'll always be a new take on the Justice League every time, a new artist, new producer, new character, so always something new coming out, and every once in a while it'll be a sequel to an existing movie. But now with the new movies, it's sort of been a reboot too, where they're kind of going like Marvel, making a DC animated universe, which sounded great. But when you watch them, most of the time they're lifting from Marvel, or if it's almost all Batman theme. We don't have a problem with Batman theme, but in the terms of everybody and everything being like Gotham, and all the villains are just marauders, and everyone's basically the Joker without having the Joker in there. There's a lot of more innuendo and themes of that sort in there that aren't really necessary. And a lot of the heroes fight each other, fight the villains, fight common people if they've been turned evil. There's like almost no end to the fight. And then when there's no fighting, nothing goes on. They tell you nothing else.
Right. And I agree with Rascal. I like seeing characters with distinct personalities and differences. I don't want to see the mythology for one character sweep across the entire DC universe, and every character pick up the traits and personalities of that one character whom they know is popular. No, you want the differences. You want variety. You want the different cities, as you mentioned, to be different. And that has just flown away, especially with the live action series that appear on the CW.
Right.
When the CW shows first started, we watched The Flash. The first 2 seasons of Flash were different and fantastic, and we hadn't overused the trope of going back in time or return to the past now.
Right.
Arrow, the first 2 seasons were brilliant and great and different. Legends, the first season was perfect, absolutely perfect. No one had done Vandal Savage as a main character so brilliantly as Legends did the first season. Supergirl, which appeared first on the CW, and in our opinion was the best season of the series, not only just for the story arc, but for the acting, for the beautiful cinematography, the brilliant color. It really felt like you were watching a comic book that had been brought to life.
Right.
You also had, what other series am I mentioning?
Arrow.
I mentioned Arrow.
And The Flash.
I mentioned Legends.
Later editions they had were Black Lightning and more recent Batwoman.
There was one more that we're missing.
I think it was mostly those 4 shows for a while, yes.
But you also had Gotham. It wasn't on CW, which we didn't understand why. It was on Fox. But hilariously enough, Batwoman now has made it clear that her universe is the same as Gotham's universe. Well, why didn't you do this when Gotham was on with some of the other shows?
Right.
That being said, most of the shows that started out, except for Arrow, where the level of writing and what was being presented was like a comic book brought to life, after the first few seasons, changed the trajectory and became something totally different, something unrecognizable, and something that really didn't feel like DC. Supergirl, when she went from CBS to CW, we were ecstatic because, yeah, all the superhero shows are in the same channel. Brilliant. Should have done it in the first place. And then you see all the changes. How the hell did you get rid of Kat Graham? She was great. And you lowered Kara's skirts like there was something wrong with her having short skirts, that she wasn't as brilliant, or she wasn't as strong, or she wasn't as great a superhero because her skirt was shorter. It didn't have anything to do with her darn skirt. It was her personality and her character.
Why are you looking at that?
They were shipping she and Jimmy, but then you go from CBS, who didn't care, to CW that was like, we're halting this crap. And then she tells them first episode, oh, I'm not so into you. I don't have time for you. And then she hooks up with Manel the next few episodes. What the hairy heck are you going? What are you doing?
No, she can only be with an alien. That's a great message.
And then you give her a boss that's like
Perry White or Jameson.
Exactly. When you had Kat Graham, who was brilliant, played by Callista Flockhart, and I still miss her to this day. You had Wynn, who had more of a presence in the show, who now is barely there. Russell said maybe due to other commitments. I hope that's the truth, because Wynn was also a brilliant character. That's what's missing now from Supergirl for us. That first season on CBS, and even the first season, even with a switch to the stations, or the network I should say, with these changes, was still better. It still was a totally different show. She was a totally different superhero. She had her own personality in it, and they had their own little iconoclast.
Right.
It was different.
Now
it kind of just blends in with everything else, especially with the CW crossover that ended the multiverses altogether.
Yes, and all crossovers in general for CW.
Which was the highlight of every year. We were sitting and waiting for the crossovers because we knew they'd be epic. We knew they would be well written. We knew they would be fun, action-packed, and we got to see some of the best acting out of these actors all year.
Right. And with the crossover, usually every year, as we said, each show will be granted, to go into the CW, or Arrowverse as it's called. First it started with Arrow and Flash, and then it went up to Supergirl, Arrow and Flash, and it was Legends, Arrow and Flash, and then they skipped Black Lightning because they didn't want to do it yet, and then it was just those shows. Then Batwoman was introduced, and it just kept going, adding new shows as it went along, and each threat getting bigger that would affect all of the CW shows. But then with the final one, as Dawn of Ultron rebooting the universe, but they did it better, CW decided, hey, no more multiverse. The multiverse is gone. Every show on now is in the same universe. You gotta deal with it.
Now, that wouldn't be so bad if they still had their own individual personalities and their own individual arcs and storylines. But now it's just one big party. And as you said, everything, one show bleeds into the other. And for me, I like the individuality that the different shows pose. And it's no longer there.
Right. And it's unfortunate because we really enjoy watching these every year. Now we're down to watching maybe one or two shows, and we're probably going to be done with those two for even the end of the year.
Now, last comment on the live action series before we get to theatrical films is Batwoman. When Batwoman first came out, we all remember the controversial ad that had nothing to do with Ruby Rose. It was CW's choice of making this. They corrected it. They made it better. When this show first came out, I was excited. I was like, okay, I'm ready to see a kick-ass Batwoman. I'm ready to see a different story. I'm ready to see action. I'm ready to see this new hero that I really don't know much about because I haven't read the Batwoman comics. And the first 4 to 5 episodes were brilliant. I personally liked her black outfit much better than the Batwoman outfit, but I understand this lines up with the comic. And then somewhere along the line, just like every other show, she's changed her trajectory. She's gone off course. And the symbol she was supposed to stand for, of course, we know she wasn't Batman. She's a woman. She had a different way of doing it. She had a different personality. She was her own person. We agree 100%. But this, Kate Kane, I'm not recognizing versus the first 4 to 5 episodes.
Yeah.
The best part of this show, personally, and it shouldn't be that way, which is what we were mentioning about the villains becoming the stars of the show, is Alice. Alice is the best part because this actor, Ruby Rose is a great actress, but it seems like they're limiting her in what they want her to do. Mm-hmm. The actress who is portraying her twin sister Alice is totally believable. She knocks it out of the park every episode. You believe this is a real person. Mm-hmm. She is spot on every time. Her acting is brilliant. Why is she showing up the main character?
Yeah, and then with the last episode we saw, they supposedly put her away so she won't be causing any more trouble. Now we know if you watch the show up to a point, you know what's going on with the character.
If you don't, we don't want to give away too many spoilers.
Right, and whether you like her or not, or can't stand her, you get that you really do feel sorry that all the things that happened to made her become Alice is more sympathetic. Like, okay, you get why she's like that. So it's like their answer to Joker, because for some reason none of the Batman villains are in here because they want all female villainesses, which is kind of okay. And when they did it, every action, what Kate did to her, they pretty much, the writers have pretty much stated that every action that Kate does is supposedly a good thing, even when it's totally off the rail for a Batman character. Then constantly reward the character with more praise and stuff, and act like you can't tell us, you can't criticize the character, you can't criticize the writing, you can't criticize that it's really, really badly done because she stands for other people and things. But it's like, no, you can't use what she stands for as an excuse or say, oh, because you like Batman, you don't like Batwoman. No, we don't like that you're trying to make us like a character that is clearly not going to be like Batman or even keep true to his what he does in her way of protecting Gotham. You want us like this character because you don't want us liking Batman.
And who was not this character in the first 5 episodes.
Right.
I loved the Kate Kane of the first 5 episodes of the series. I absolutely loved the character. Mm-hmm. I loved what she represented. I loved the acting. I loved everything. I told Rascal, okay, I'm sticking with this show. Now, all this being said, we're going to stick with this series to the end of the season. And we're going to give her another chance at the beginning of the next season because we know she's being renewed. I really, really hope that the character finds her way back to what she represented in the beginning. And we do know that there are some arcs that deal with other things that are part of society, and that is not an issue. The issue is for us that, as we mentioned, she committed a crime. If you haven't watched it, we don't want to say. She had no remorse for committing the crime. Her father helped her commit another crime, and then she turned on her twin sister. Those are the problems that we have.
Exactly.
That's the issue.
And a little bonus, for getting plot points and arcs going on, well, what happened with her father at one point, the next episode is completely skipped over, and people are asking what happened, and the writers just kind of throw in an excuse several episodes later, which doesn't explain things. So their writing is also not consistent, and it looks like they're not even caring that they're skipping over stories.
Right. Now, one big shout out to CW, the network, for having lots and lots of women in these shows. Good guys, villains, starring roles. Kudos. Fantastic work. Keep it up. Just make sure you've got some strong male characters that can possibly be a challenge to the women that you're creating.
Right.
Now, last we're going to talk about the theatrical films, the DCEU now.
Yeah. And so far, there have been pretty much a handful of movies out, and they've taken a while to come out. Now, at first, it's been kind of shaky, with some movies being praised, some movies being dumped on.
Mm-hmm. And vilified.
Right. And depending on your view of the point of the movie, you might agree or disagree. The movies we personally don't care for are the Justice League one, mostly because we have been waiting for that for so long, and the final product was not really all that.
But I have to say, in my opinion, Ben Affleck did a fantastic job as Bruce Wayne. I thought that there should have been someone else playing Batman and him playing Bruce Wayne. He was brilliant as Bruce Wayne. I loved him as Bruce Wayne. It was when they had him put the suit on to be Batman that there should have been someone else, and where the role actually should have been shared. He made a wonderful Bruce Wayne.
Right. And another one we kind of didn't care for personally was Suicide Squad. Like, again, if you like these movies, no problem. But the other movies, we pretty much enjoyed or thought were okay. And the only one we have not seen is the Harley Quinn movie.
Yeah, so we are looking forward to seeing that. I personally like Batman vs. Superman.
Right.
I saw nothing wrong with it. We watched it twice in a row when we did see it. And for us, the worst part of the movie was the fight between Batman and Superman, when they had Batman would even go to the levels of killing Superman. But other than that, we thought the movie was great.
Right.
Now, years and years later, there are people who are coming out and saying, hey, this is a good movie. It was a good movie when it came out.
Right.
It's the same movie you're watching now.
Right.
Nothing changes except for your perception and opening your mind to what was there rather than what it was you wanted to see. Appreciating what they made and seeing the good that they did do in the movie that they created.
Right.
Of course, you know, you've got so many Batman versions of Batman with the different actors: Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Christian Bale, my favorite, and now
we got Ben Affleck.
and Ben Affleck
and Will Arnett for the voice.
Okay, but now you've got Patterson.
Yeah, Robert Patterson for the Batman movie.
So we just gotta see how this is gonna end up working out. Some standouts, of course: Aquaman, Wonder Woman,
Shazam,
yes.
Shazam, and Man of Steel.
Absolutely.
And what else do they have come out? Well, when you think about it, there aren't as many movies collectively as Marvel, as they spit out $1 billion a year.
True.
But it is still a fair amount of movies right now, and we're supposedly getting movies more about the villains, like one about Black Adam. We know the Joker movie has done very, very well.
The Joker movie has excelled and far exceeded any expectations the studio and the fans had.
Yeah.
That's another one that we haven't seen as yet.
Right. And yeah, they have their share of some movies that are good, some movies that are bad. And like we said, we are totally okay if you feel differently about these movies and you agree or disagree. It's more power to you. But we have noticed that the movies, as they get closer towards the more recent ones, once again, their mood has shifted. They started out as something want to be, I guess, more serious than Marvel. Marvel is usually known as being the upright, cheery one, and DC's the dark and dread one, but still having some action in there. But now it's just mostly dread for most of the movies. You got Man of Steel, which was a darker retelling of Superman, but still effective in its storytelling. Batman vs. Superman, which was supposed to be an even darker retelling of the rival between Batman and Superman. Wonder Woman was great.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Wonderful. But now we're kind of thrown off by 1984 because
it seems more like a comedy, or action comedy, than an epic movie.
Well, not just that, but we thought Steve Trevor died, and we're seeing him in the trailers, and we're confused.
Right, so we gotta see what's going on for that.
Right.
Suicide Squad did not care.
And he hasn't aged.
Right.
Like Wonder Woman.
Right. Suicide Squad, just personally didn't care for it. We're wondering how this group of characters even got a movie, because we're kind of surprised on how much popular they are in the comics, but usually the ones that really stand out ones are Harley Quinn and Joker, so...
but there was some standout acting in the movie, even if I didn't care for the movie itself.
Right.
The acting was spot on, and it was some really great acting done by the stars.
Right. And then we had the Justice League movie, which unfortunately was kind of disappointing because a lot of people were waiting for that for decades. When it finally came out, it seemed like they were trying to do a rush job of the Avengers coming together, because there were 3 heroes introduced in there that we hadn't seen in their own movies yet by the time it came out.
And now we know that Cyborg's never going to get a movie. Explain it to us, DC.
Right.
We really need to know why you scrapped this character's movie and why you scrapped this character.
Right. And then we'll have, the other movies as it goes on.
Right. So, we're really just excited and waiting to hear your opinions of what you think of the reboot of the DC Comics as well as the DCEU. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Which are your favorite movies? Which you don't like so much? Who are your favorite characters? What are your favorite CW shows? What are your favorite animated series? What comic book series will you stick with no matter what happens? Let us know in the comments below.
Right. And be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more updates on future World of Paws podcasts and our regular podcast.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ask Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.
And reporters sitting, flashing lights, trying to walk around, man, who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. With her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket, give it to you.